The trip to the lake was just meant for a bunch of us college kids to blow off steam. I'm still unsure of what I saw that night. And they also haven't found any trace of Kevin. I had a paper due next week. A big one that would bring down my grade if I half-assed it. I was doing a lot of half-assing recently, and wanted to get myself a bit more on track. Then my roommate invited me to a weekend trip to the lake. I really should have used those 2 days for homework, but I was putting it off. But he begged and begged. He wanted to make more friends, and got as far as to invite me to the lake trip. He was so nervous being around new people that he asked me to be around for moral support. I relented, agreeing to stay one day instead of the whole weekend. I drove us down to the lake to meet everyone. To my surprise, I saw Kevin and with a small group of people. We went to high school together. His sister was in the college group, so Kevin tagged along. I felt sorry for her. For not only having him as a brother, but not being able to keep him away from her friends. Kevin was special. We called him the lovable village idiot, but most times he was just an idiot. When he saw me, he threw his hands up in the air with a yell that startled everyone. If I didn't dodge him, he would have chest bumped me to the ground. Kevin was very physical when excited. Jim, my roommate, felt better knowing someone like Kevin would take all the attention off him, in case he did anything embarrassing in front of the new group of friends. We all got friendly introductions. Natalie was single and was friends with Kevin's sister, Lizzie. Barb and Cody were a couple. Jack and Ian were also a couple. Kevin made some very inappropriate jokes towards them. Nothing hateful, just something Kevin would be dumb enough to say. I don't know how they tolerated him. If I was in their shoes, I would have had him packing, and I sort of liked the guy. Everything was already set up by the time we arrived. They found a good area right beside the lake. Small waves lapped at the sandy shore. A cool wind blew, making it a perfect spot. I brought some food to grill and a lot of marshmallows for later. At first, Jim stayed glued to my side, too shy to start up a conversation. I got him talking with Jack and Ian after I overheard they both played D&D. Within the next few minutes, all three were talking as if they'd known each other for years. A fire got started, so we all found a spot to sit after dinner was made, eaten, and cleaned up. The beer cooler came out once everyone was comfortable by the fire. Everyone had partnered up, and I got Kevin duty. As it grew dark and the conversation started to get louder, I had to keep an eye on my old dumb high school buddy. He tried to put a closed can of beer in the fire, seeing if it would explode. When I took it away from him, he flicked half-burnt marshmallows around, trying to get them to stick to things. One nearly took out poor Jack's eye. Kevin lost his marshmallow privileges. By 9, he was getting antsy, trying to think of other ways to get attention.
Yo, I'm gonna go prank the girls. Start recording in like 10 minutes, maybe 20. I gotta go take a dump in the woods,
Kevin whispered, almost right in my ear. Didn't need to hear the second part, dude. I told him, but Kevin was already gone. Depending on what he considered a prank, I might need to kick his ass in a few minutes. I was the only one not drinking. My plan was to leave at midnight. The lake wasn't very far away from our college, so it made a good spot for parties. I could get back home at 2 a.m., and I normally stayed up that late on weekends anyway. Besides not wanting to drive home after drinking, I had never liked drinking to start with. Since Jim was having a good time, I knew it was safe to book it. Having one sober person sometimes brings down a party. Plus, I trusted everyone there, aside from our dumb marshmallow killer. If I knew Kevin's drinking habits, he would get blackout drunk in an hour. I didn't need to stay around to be the parent of the group. I listened in to some of the conversations going on. I think the girls started to talk about how lame YouTube pranks had gotten, or how fake those videos are where people give out food or clothing to the homeless. They guessed that the money was either fake or they took it right back after the video. Or the person on the receiving end was a hired actor. I knew Kevin had a thing for Natalie. I should let him do whatever prank he wanted so she would freak out on him, making it clear he had no chance with her. But maybe he would be too stupid to even take that big of a hint. I didn't think he would have anything too impressive planned prank-wise. Most likely just jumping out of the dark to scare us. I looked around, realizing I hadn't heard him creeping around, even though there had been lots of time for him to do his business and then come back. The lake was dark and as silent as the grave. I didn't go out into nature often, but I assumed it would be louder. I didn't hear any crickets or night creatures. Only the sound of the water rippling. I was about to look back into the circle of people and into the light of the fire when I heard it. Ribbit. That was not a frog. It was someone just saying the word. Clear as day, someone just said ribbit. What on earth was our village idiot doing? Ribbit. I closed my eyes. Is this really the best he could come up with? Do you guys hear that? Kevin asked, looking towards the dark lake, following my gaze. It's just Kevin messing around. We know you're out there. I shouted the last part, trying to embarrass him to come out from the dark. A sound came from the lake, like a fish jumping. I squinted, trying to see, because it had sounded close. Can you see that? Natalie asked. I could see what she meant. 2 yellow specks off into the lake. It looked like the light reflection off animals' eyes at night. Without any question, those small specks were a set of eyes. At first, I thought our friend had managed a real prank, like he had attached some lights to something that floated off into the lake. I'd watched some documentary about swamps earlier in the year. Those eyes reminded me of how crocodile eyes looked at night. Or maybe they were alligators. All I knew was that I did not like the look of whatever was staring at us in the middle of the lake. Maybe it's like a duck or something, I offered. Ribbit. That sound came again. Closer this time, as another set of eyes came up looking at us. I stood up, grabbing the flashlight that had rolled by my feet earlier. For some reason, Kevin hadn't taken it for his bathroom run. More sets of eyes started to show up, and everyone was getting a bit freaked out. I was getting scared, even though my rational mind was clinging to the duck idea. I turned on the flashlight to shine the beam out into the lake. When I did, I kept hearing splashing sounds. The damn things moved too fast. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't catch anything in the light. I swept it quickly over the dark surface, listening to whatever was in the lake dipping down. Once the flashlight moved away, the eyes came back. I don't like this, Lizzie whispered, and Barb took a hold of her for comfort. I kept the light in one spot, trying to think of what to do. We really should leave. Whatever was going on, it was best not to mess with it. But again, Kevin had to ruin everything. We just couldn't leave him behind. He still wasn't back, and I had a choice to make. You all should go. Take Jim with you. I'll keep the light on the lake while you leave, and then I'll find Kevin. When I get him, I'll drive back to town with him. I don't know if we should go to the cops or animal control or what. I didn't think any of them wanted to leave, but we were all too freaked out to stay. Crap, I just thought of everyone who had been drinking. I wasn't keeping track of them or who was drunk. I really didn't want them driving. Who's sober enough to drive? In a short conversation, we decided Jim and Lizzie could drive. They only had 2 beers compared to the 4 the others had. They would both take their cars and leave mine. The group started to collect their items when that nerve-wracking sound came again. Ribbit. 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 Every single hair on my body stood on end. The voices started to get closer. My hands started to shake. I forced myself steady. I was the only thing keeping whoever or whatever in the lake. Just go. Get the stuff later, I hissed at everyone. They all looked reluctant to leave their gear behind. Because the plan was to stay the weekend, they had tents and other gear set up at our little site. I would imagine all that gear cost a good bit of money. For broke college students, it would be a big blow. I was about to tell them all to move faster when a sudden burst of movement right outside our firelight made everyone scream and dart into action. I thought I saw a dark figure creep close to the light's edge. It tossed up sand at our fire, causing everyone to bolt. Most ran for the car. Some scrambled trying to get on shoes or pick up their phones. I frantically shot the beam of light around, trying to see what the hell had just come up close, only to find nothing aside from footprints in the sand. We're leaving. I ran and grabbed Cody by the arm. He was the last one near the fire. I half dragged him away, chasing after our group. They ran, most screaming, to where we parked. In my haste and poor flashlight control, I swung it around wildly. From time to time, I could have sworn I saw a human figure as dark as night in the beam for just half a second. They darted off before my mind could even register what I'd seen. Behind us, something was tossing sand and water at our fire, trying to put it out. All the while, we heard that ribbit sound. If I wasn't a part of that group, I would have found the whole thing funny. I mean, why just say ribbit? Did whatever they were think that they could fool us with that? Or maybe they just wanted to say it. I made sure everyone was inside the cars and my keys inside my pocket, and turned around to face the dark lakeside. I really should have just left Kevin behind. I wasn't thinking straight in the moment. Glimmering on the lake were at least 100 sets of those horrible eyes. When I saw some off in the darkness, not at all in the lake, I nearly lost my courage to stay. Swallowing down my fear, I would at least make some sort of attempt to find my friend. I took off into a mad dash as the cars peeled away behind me. I ran, turning towards the woods, not wanting to be near the lake's edge. I didn't want to go running off into the woods with only a flashlight, though. I knew I would get lost. I could only check the open areas and then go back to my car, if I found Kevin or not. Hopefully the cops would take us seriously about someone being missing, and bring people who actually knew what they were doing to find him. In my panic, I thought every tree branch or bush that touched me was a set of hands ready to drag me into the lake. I still heard those ribbit sounds, but fainter as I ran towards the edge of the woods. I scanned them with my flashlight, just praying I would find him, and get the hell out of there. I had to stop after running so hard. Running on sand was tougher than I thought. My legs burned and my lungs felt like they would burst from the fear and from dashing about. As I stood trying to get my second wind, a sound came from close by. Something between the faded ribbits coming from the lake. It took everything in me to slowly turn my beam over to where that noise came from. My stomach twisted and turned at the strange sight. Someone was standing in the dark beside a lump that looked like a full trash bag. No, that wasn't right at all. It looked like a trash bag at first, much like how a sack of clothing could look like a person at night. As I stared at the form, it turned into something else. Something human looking hunched over, back facing towards me. Its skin was dark and oily, making me think I had seen a trash bag at first. My eyes darted to the small person that stood next to it. They weren't Kevin, that's for sure. Maybe a kid looking around 14, with odd blonde hair so light it looked white in the dim light. Even with the flashlight on them, neither looked over at me. I stood frozen in horror, listening to an awful, wet crunching sound that alerted me to these two in the first place. The thing which was hunched over suddenly seemed to notice me. It froze, then slowly began to turn its head and peer over its shoulder. As it turned its body, I saw a face of sunken features and wide, yellow eyes. In its hand was an arm. A half chewed apart arm. I knew what that sound had been then, and I was nearly sick. Then the boy looked at me. Red eyes stared at me. I couldn't take it. Somehow seeing red and glowing eyes that looked right down into my soul scared me more than anything else had that night. I knew I was not going to find my friend, and ran like a coward. They never found him. Even after we somehow got the cops and some volunteer forest rangers to search, Kevin was never found. At first, they thought he was drunk and drowned in the lake. Barb and Cody told the cops about the eyes and the ribbits on the lake. The rest of us wouldn't admit to it. So it was thought that those two were just drunk also. The friend group broke apart after speaking with the cops. Even Jim wouldn't talk with me, which was hard considering we shared a small room. I never told them what I saw. I didn't think anyone would believe me. What could I tell them? Kevin might have been eaten by some ribbiting lake monster while a creepy kid watched? No, not a soul would buy that. I just have to keep it to myself and hope his family recovers from their loss. Nature is scary. Things that go bump in the night are all too happy to gobble you up. Even if you're going on a trip you think is safe, please be careful out there. If something feels wrong, just leave. A chance of a good time isn't worth your life. Or the life of your friends. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.